Next time definitely I have told you that I will come, I will have a hospital, I will spend more time here with all of you. And there are members of Tripura Autonomous Council also here. My friend Jayan Sasetia, my friend Kaushik Chaudhary and other colleagues of the Karbi Anglong Bar Association who are here. And Karbi Bhandupapa. I come from Assam. I am born in Doha, which is an adjoining district to Karbi Anglong. Yesterday while I was coming, I stayed there. I had my lunch there. So I am really feel at home when I am here in Assam, in Nagaon district or even in Karbi Anglong. So now let us come to the subject today. The tribal area which we call, which is Karbi Anglong, is a part of the tribal area of Assam, was originally called by the Britishers backward tracts, as Justice Gogoi has told us, excluded areas, partially excluded areas. I have a very, very sentimental detachment to these words. Why it is excluded area? Why it is backward tract? I don't find anyone of you here can be called backward than other parts of the country. We are quite forward. We are all mature. Thank God the constitution maker felt that that is a wrong expression. That's why they call it a tribal area. And not a backward area, not an excluded area or a partially excluded area. So moving further, on the recommendation, Justice Gogoi told us, on the recommendation of the Gopinath Bordal Committee, a sixth schedule was formulated, which is a constitution within constitution and mini constitution. Let us first know a little history that in 1950, the sixth schedule was, or the tribal area of Assam was, the entire Arunachal Pradesh, which was then at Northeastern Territory, the entire Nagaland, which was then known as Naga district or Naga tribal area, the entire state of Mizoram, which was the Mizo district of Assam, the entire state of Meghalaya, which was then United Khasi Jain district and Garo district, and the two districts of Assam, that is Karbi Anglong, then known as Nekadis, and then known as North Kasa, now known as Dima Assam. So almost the entire northeast or the Assam, be then undivided Assam of 1950, was substantially a tribal area of Assam, governed by the sixth schedule. And friends, let me tell you, sixth schedule is the only provision in the constitution specially made for a particular part of the country. So the constitution makers are very much conscious that yes, we need a separate law, we have rich traditions, we have rich heritage in this part of the country. Make a special law. And after great debate and on the report of the Gopinath Bordal Committee, the sixth schedule has been framed. And slowly it has, new areas have come, but many areas have gone out of sixth schedule. Firstly, in 1962, state of Nagaland came to be constituted. It was out of the sixth schedule. In fact, though it was a part of the sixth schedule, never a district council, autonomous council was constituted there. Then in 1969, state of Meghalaya was constituted. And I do not know how many of you know that Karbi Anglong District Council, then known as Nikir District Council, and North Kazar District Council, were also given the option to zone district of Meghalaya. If the district council by 2/3 majority passes a resolution to this effect, but see the love of Assam, see the love of the Nikir people, with the people of Assam, with the free trades of Assam, that they never wanted to join Meghalaya, they agreed with Assam with as brothers. That's how I say that when I come to this part of the country, I come from Assam, really very touchy and sentimental many times. Then in 1971, Mizoram becomes a 71-year union territory. Instead of the entire district, now only the southern two districts are part of the sixth schedule. Arunachal Pradesh was also part of the sixth schedule, but never any district council was constituted. It also went out in 1971. Then in 1984 is the latest baby of the sixth schedule, is the Tripura Autonomous Council. Representative of Citibank behind my back, I have just talked to them. That it is the youngest baby of the sixth schedule from the state point of view. They were constituted in 1984 as the Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous Council. And in 2003, Bodoland Autonomous Council has been constituted. So today we have 10 district councils in Northeast, 3 in Assam, 3 in Meghalaya, 3 in Mizoram, and 1 in Tripura. But area-wise, the entire Meghalaya is the 6th schedule. 3 districts or 3 areas of Assam is 6th schedule. Very small part of Mizoram is 6th schedule, and a large part of Tripura is 6th schedule. Now let us see how it has made headway in regards to autonomy so far as Assam is concerned. This is Gogoi told us, we all know there are 3 on which, on 10 subjects, all the 6 schedules of the 6th schedule, all the district councils or the autonomous council now therefore can make laws on 10 subjects which are mentioned there. But we wanted more autonomy. When we say, I say, the Niki Hills district people and the North Kata Hills or the Karbi Anglong and the Dima Assam. So on 1st April 1995, we had an agreement, tripartite agreement with the government of India, state of Assam, and the representative of these 2 districts, hill districts or the tribal districts of Assam. And 30 more subjects, please note, from 1 to 30 plus 40. Now on 40 subjects, the district councils or the autonomous councils of Assam can make laws. And the governor issued 2 notifications in 1995 and 1996 delegating the executive powers on these 30 subjects to the district councils. So today we have 30 additional powers which are available to only these 2 district councils or the autonomous councils in Assam. And the most important historical fact so far as autonomy is concerned is the 1995 Constitution Amendment. 2 important provisions are there. First is paragraph 3A, on which Mrs. Gogoi told us that 18 more subjects were added on which you can make laws. There are 2 things. One is you can make laws, but another is you can take executive action. Paragraph 3A gives you the power to make laws, and the notification issued by the state government give you power to take executive action. So you can take executive action on 37 subjects which are mentioned in those notifications of 95 and 96. And we have paragraph 3A on which you can make 18 subjects laws in addition to the 10 subjects mentioned in paragraph 3. Now what is to be noticed is all these laws made by the district councils or the autonomous council need approval of the governor. Now we must dissect that there are the power of the state government under the constitutional scheme is under the 7th schedule. In list 1, the central government has the power. In list 2, state government has the power. In list 3, both the central and the state government has the power. Now if you see paragraph 3.3, sorry, I'm omitting the paragraph. The constitutional scheme today is that it's a state subject, take the approval of the governor, but if it is in the concurrent subjects, then you have to go to the governor is to refer it to the president. The state government has no power. If I read it carefully, the provisions of the 6th schedule of paragraph 3A, let me read it once. (3)(2) is very important. That's what I was saying. Paragraph 3A(2). All laws made by the North Kata Hills Autonomous Council and the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council under paragraph 3 or under this paragraph, that means 3A, which are 18 subjects, insofar as the matter relates to list 3 of the 7th schedule, that is the concurrent list, he submitted to the governor who shall reserve the same for consideration of the president. So if a subject which is, say, some of the subjects I have noted which falls in the concurrent list, for example, inheritance of property, marriage and divorce, social customs, forest, not a reserve forest, social security and insurance, primary and secondary education. These are concurrent list subjects. Where the state government has no role, sir. It is the president, it is the central government who has the role. The president, the governor only receives it. Who shall reserve the same for the consideration of the president. And then further he said it will be considered by the president and he can send it back for reconsideration. So if a subject falls, whenever you are passing a law, please keep in mind, please consult the legal experts who are there on your left and right, Mr. CEM sir. You have legal experts on your left, on your right, on your front. I am not a legal expert, but if it falls under a concurrent list, then please tell the governor it falls in the concurrent list, please send it to the governor. Because we want autonomy from whom? Why we have 6 schedules? Because we feel that the majority the small portion of people residing in this place, we have a separate law, we have a separate custom, we have a separate system of governance. State government should not have a role, should not have a dominance over it. It's a big brother, no doubt about it, and bigger brother is the central government. So far as the subjects mentioned in these 3 are concerned, they should go to the president. They should not go to the state government. We only write to the governors and request the governor, it's a matter under list 3, please send it to the president for consideration. I am told, I do not know the list, that there are many laws which are passed by the district councils, have not been assented yet by the state government. If they fall, please examine all of them. If they fall under the state list, yes, state governor is to give his assent, and I will come to it whether the governor is in discretion of the state government. But if it falls in the concurrent list, I have given you some of the examples, I will give the list to Mr. Jayant. If it falls in the concurrent list, you must write to the governor, His Excellency the Governor, this falls in the concurrent list and please send it to the President for his assent. And it is the President who has to give his assent and not the state government. So this is a very important provision for autonomy of the district councils of Assam. This is a special provision only for Assam. This doesn't apply to other parts, other district councils in the Meghalaya. As Gopi told us, in Meghalaya there is no personal discretion of the governor. Everything is under the state government because there is a reason behind it. Entire state of Meghalaya is district council. There are 3 district councils except 4 wards of Shillong municipality. We have a lot of details in the Supreme Court on that. All other districts, all other areas, entire 99.99% of the Meghalaya is covered by the district councils. Only 4 wards, which are called European wards of Shillong, they don't come under the district council. So that is why if your entire is tribal area, you are elected, governor doesn't have any discretion. But so far as the governor of Assam is concerned, now I come to paragraph 3B8, which Justice Gogoi has enlightened us to a great extent. I am just supplementing him. Paragraph 320BA in clear terms says on the subjects which are mentioned there, and one of the subjects is paragraph 3.3. Paragraph 3.3 is what? Paragraph 3.3 is paragraph 3, subparagraph 3 is all laws made under this paragraph shall be submitted forthwith to the governor and unbe assented by him shall have no effect. And the governor under paragraph 3.3 read with paragraph 20B would be governor in his personal discretion. And what does the governor do? So in future, according to me, I will come to one or more 2 paragraphs of the district council administration of justice, administration rules of 1951 also. What does it say? That governor will consult the council of ministers, governor will consult the district council or the autonomous council, and in his discretion shall be taken as he considers necessary in his discretion. It has to have some meaning. Normally the governor is the constitutional head. He acts on the aid and advice of the council of ministers. He doesn't have a personal discretion at all. Whatever the government says, that's an elected body, democracy, that is the democracy we have adopted. He has to act on the aid and advice of the council of ministers. But here there is special provisions that we made, and it is very clear says that after consulting the council of ministers and the North Kachar and the Karjangram Autonomous Council, take such actions as he considers necessary. And what is also important is para 20BB, which applies to Tripura and Mizoram. Tripura 20BB was added in 1988, where the provision is the governor can consult the district council if he thinks necessary. Now that provision in our tripartite agreement of 1st April 1995 was exclusively, specifically excluded. The agreement said this, if he considers necessary, is to be deleted. and that is deleted in para 20A. So governor also does not have a discretion whether to consult the district council or autonomous council or not. He must consult the council of ministers, and he must consult the autonomous council and take a decision in his discretion. Of course, there are 2 or 3 Supreme Court judgments say the governor means governor acting on aid and advice. But those judgments are not on BA. Those judgments are not on BB. It has to give a different meaning. So on the subjects which are mentioned, and one of the very important subjects is para 3, which says the governor, the laws made by the district council shall have no effect till governor gives his assent. And the governor, while giving his assent, he has to act in his discretion. Take inputs from the cabinet ministers, he has to take, that is the elected body of the state government. Take inputs from the district council and you decide. You cannot leave the decision on the state government or be bound by it. You can accept it, but you may reject it. So that is very important for our purpose, for the purpose of autonomy. Because since earlier British rules, the governor and the governor generals have been given a special power to apply the central laws to the tribal areas or transport excluded areas or not. So the governor is supposed to act independently, take the inputs of the people from the autonomous councils, and then take the inputs from the state government or the council of ministers, take his independent decision. Now there are 2 or 3 provisions which again I have a difficulty in the Constitution of District Council Rules 1951. One of the provisions says, now that even for moving a bill, I do not know the practice which is there. Rule 73.3, if you see it, it says, let me just read that. It's a very, very difficult provision to accept. 73.3 says, 1 minute just. Yes, no bill shall be introduced in the autonomous council without prior approval of the governor. Copies of all official and private members' bills shall be sent to the governor through deputy commissioner sufficiently in advance, at least before publication in the Gazette, and no bill shall be published in the Gazette unless the permission of the governor to such publication is obtained. Now, I have 2 problems here. Why should a bill require an approval? Bill is a bill. The council is considering the bill. There is no question of prior approval. The Constitution does not require. Constitution, the rules cannot go beyond the constitutional provisions.
Sir, can I intervene?
Sir, please.
This is our main problem.
Yes.
This is the biggest issue, most serious
I
issue.
think you must challenge and you will succeed.
No, the point is that right now, the case is even to introduce a thing in the autonomous council, you need a prior approval of the government.
This is wrong.
But in the general practice, in other assemblies, it is the speaker who gives permission whether it will be introduced or not.
Considering, sir, you are not accepted.
So the power of the chairman of the council is being taken over by the governor.
By the governor, and I find it by the district magistrate.
Yes.
District magistrate is an officer of the state government.
Yes.
District magistrate has no role. I don't want to use this very strong expression. He has no business that he comes in the way. District magistrate is an officer of the state government. He runs administration, runs law and order, etc. But so far as the functioning of the district councils are concerned, it said it must be given to the deputy commissioner. And I find in the agreement of 1995, I find in the agreement of 2021 that while appointing the deputy commissioner, the chief executive member of the district council has to be taken into consideration. If the district council is such an authoritative constitutional body, for posting of a deputy commissioner you have to consult, and for moving a bill you go to the deputy commissioner and that is mercy that whether he forwards it or not. It is not acceptable.
Right now, 9 bills are getting stuck in the state.
According to me, as I said, that you have lawyers here, both sides, they accept. Don't go to the governor. Go direct, pass it directly. File a writ petition, wherever it is. Definitely, it is provision 3.3. If I read this provision 3.3, the Constitution only says the governor, once the bill is passed, it should be, let me read it again. The government, it says, 1 minute, all laws made under this paragraph. While moving a bill, you have not made the law, you are just considering to make a law. All laws made under this shall be submitted to the governor until assented to by him shall have no effect. I agree. That is the constitutional provision. But it does not say all bill must be moved with the prior approval of the governor. This provision of Rule 73(3) is clearly unconstitutional. Ultimately, what court says, nobody can say it, of course. We will argue from both sides, etc. But definitely, this is not what is intended by the constitutional maker. This is the provision made in 1950 after a great debate by the Constituent Assembly, by Comparative Committee, by Dr. Ambedkar, etc. And then maybe in 1951 such rules have been made, but these rules cannot prevail. This has no legs to stand. Both the things. One, for moving the bill, we don't require you to go to the governor. We will move it directly. We'll go to the chairman of the House, of the Council, and the chairman will consider there is a procedure for moving the bill, private member bill, official bill. It will be debated in the House, and once passed, we will go to the governor. And we will not go to the district magistrate. I'm making it clear, you should not go to the district magistrate. Go it directly. We'll fight it out if they don't. If the governor says, no, you have not followed this procedure, we'll fight it out. But this is not acceptable. This is not the autonomy which we are talking about. Another provision which again further is troubling me is same provision, para 92(2). Where again, after passing of the bill, after bill has been authenticated by the chairman. So chairman conducts the proceedings, the House passes the bill, and secretary says send the authenticated to the governor, to the deputy governor for submission to the governor. Sorry, we will not send it to the deputy commissioner. That's my sincerely advice, and we must take a resolution today in this House. And not send any bill prior to passing it or after the passing it to the deputy commissioner. Prior to the passing, we don't require the approval of the governor. After the passing of the bill, we require the approval of the governor. But the principal secretary of the council will send it to the secretariat of the governor directly. And the governor is required to consult the cabinet, the council of ministers and the council, and then passes it. Again, we don't go to the state government. State government, so whether it is said we have to go to the governor. And the governor has been defined, again, 3 has been included in 28. So governor has to act in his discretion. And in his discretion he consults. So we don't go to the consulting first. We go to the decision making authority. The decision making authority is the governor, and he is required to consult. And
the Autonomous Council Chairman Speaker,
yes,
approval is the final approval.
that's right. He, chairman of the Autonomous Council, he finally authenticates it. After authentication, you send it to the governor secretariat through the office, protocol, whatever is required. Send it to the principal secretary of the governor or whatever the office of the governor secretariat. Request him to place it before the governor and take his discretion after consulting. And here also it is very important. The governor, as I said, if it falls under the concurrent list, then the state government is completely out. It is only if it falls under the state list where your laws prevail over the state legislation. That Justice Sarvinovi told us.
As per Constitution of India, Article 163, Council of Ministers decisions the.
You're right. You're right. But what about para 3(3)? It is also a constitution of India.
Okay.
It is not outside constitution of India.
Okay.
It is part of the constitution, and it is meant for tribal areas.
Yes.
It is not meant for the rest of the country.
Right.
So it is special provision. If there is a special provision, there is a subtle law in when we discuss it, things in the court.
Okay.
There is a special provision overrides the general provision.
Okay, thank you so
And
much.
general provision has to be under the special provision. And make a test case. If it is not done, if the governor says, no, I will not entertain, we'll see. Modalities can be worked out. And according to me, sir, please, this is a provision applicable not only to this Karjangan district council, this is a provision applicable to all the district council. We have educationist visitors. Please form a study group of all the 10 district councils. Please talk to your counterpart. This is a major problem we are facing. Please talk to your counterpart. Except Meghalaya is a little different. But other than the BA and BB applied. Talk to your counterparts, 7 counterparts, 3 in Assam, 3 in Mizoram and 1 in Tripura. That henceforth, since the governor has to act in his discretion, our principal secretary will send it directly to the governor secretariat, Governor Secretariat must place it before the His Excellency the Governor. Governor adopt two modalities again. While passing the bill also, according to me, you should say, it falls under a concurrent list, please send it to the President of India. That is our advice. Governor may accept, may not accept. If the governor says what is falls to the state list, all right, he will consult the Council of Ministers. But if it expressly falls under the concurrent list, then it has to go to the President. And if it is the President only, President means the Council of Ministers at the central level, with the Prime Minister acting as. And as I told you, there are many subjects which are forest, for example, which is very important, other than reserve forest. It's a concurrent list under 17A. Before, I think, 42nd Amendment, it was in the state list. It was moved out of the state list, made a part of the concurrent list. And what is the meaning of para 3A? It clearly says all law under the concurrent list be under para 3 or be under para 3A. But if it falls under the concurrent list, that is the list 3, it must be sent to the President. And 3.3 also says, if it is sent to the President, President will consider it. He may not agree with it, he can send it back to the district council. So there is a direct communication from the President of India. I don't think that will ever happen. The President of India, let me read that again, paragraph 3A, 3, which has been inserted in 1995, especially for Karbiangon District Council and the North Kazakh District Council or the Dimasa District Council. It clearly says, 1 minute, 3A, 3. 3A2, all laws made by North Kazakh and Karbiangon District Council under paragraph 3A, insofar as they relate to list 3, that is the concurrent list of 7 schedules, shall be submitted forthwith to the Governor, who shall reserve the same for consideration of the President. And 3 say, when a law is reserved for consideration of the President shall declare either his assent to the said law or he withholds therefrom, provided the President may direct the Governor to return the law to the District Council together with a message. So the state government does not come into the picture if it lists list 3. So whenever you make a law, please analyze whether it falls under list 2 or list 3. If it is list 3, please request the Governor, then please send it to the President of India for his consideration. And if it falls under list 2, please tell him that please take the advice of the Council of Ministers and do it in your discretion. That is what the constitutional mandate is. So these 2 or 3 provisions are necessary for the purpose of attaining autonomy. Autonomy has been given by the Constitution, but perhaps in procedural reform, we have somehow been controlled by 1951 rules, which were made at that point of time, I don't know. But it does not stand scrutiny, according to me, and it's very loud and clear. So this House, according to me, must take a decision that henceforth the laws made by us will not be referred to district magistrate. We will send it directly to the Governor, and the Governor requests the Governor to take any advice of the Council of Ministers and decide in his personal discretion. And if it is list 3, then he will send it to the Governor, to the President of India.
Excuse me, sir. It is just for your information.
This is
We have also redrafted these rules.
sorry.
Very recently, they have redrafted these rules.
Okay.
And they have eliminated that first part of sending it to the Governor for his approval in the case of, but they have given that power to the chairman concerned,
Yes.
who will decide whether it will be introduced in our law.
Right.
That bill is stuck in the same procedure that there it is.
Please initiate proceedings, court proceedings. Please initiate court proceedings. And please don't go yourself. Take the confidence of other 7 district councils also. Let it be a joint effort. Let it be a joint effort by all the 7 district councils. Let all the district councils take a joint, because see, unfortunately, Guwahati High Court is 3 districts in Mizoram, in Assam, and 1 in Tripura. So maybe I don't want to discuss the strategy part of it, where to do, what to do, and all those things. That has to be done not in a public debate, but has to be discussed in the general, the legal advice part of it. But definitely this has to be done. And without that also, you should say that even if the rule says the rule cannot override the constitutional provision. The Constitution gives me autonomy, and I am exercising this autonomy. These rules cannot come in my way. I have amended it by your amendment question many times. Done, but henceforth I am not doing it. And then we see how the procedure is not adopted or adopted by the government or by the. And it has to be thought of. Because I have seen that we have fought in 1995, we have got the much more autonomy than any other district council. We have fought in 2021, there is another tripartite agreement, they have got much more power. Now that is also to take shape in law. Now I 2019. 125th Amendment Bill, 2019.
Next.
2019. Earlier 2015 was a Government of India on proposal as a proposal. That did not see the light of the day. In 2019, a bill is moved. The bill is referred to Anand Sharma committee comprising of about 30 members of the Parliament. That has also given a very strong report that this it must be done. But again, it has not been provided. So another resolution which I am requesting for this House to take, that this 2019 bill, which is introduced in 2019, there is a standing committee of the Government of India headed by Anand Sharma, comprising about 30 members of the, comprising of 31 members of the Parliament. They have also recommended the bill to be passed with certain modifications. You must take that, yes, this bill must be moved by the Government of India very, very early, so that the Parliament takes it up and passes the act. Once this constitution is amended further, you will get much more further autonomy. That is what is required. Because if they get, see, Government of India has moved the bill in 2019. There is a standing committee of 31 members, and standing committees are very important. So this must also be done, that once there is a bill introduced in the House, it should not attain dust. There is a parliamentary committee member of 31 who has passed it, who has recommended it. After that, we don't know whether it is happening. Some law ministry official or the department official, somebody, it can be direct from someone else. We must fight it out. Now that we have an agreement, now that there is a bill, now that there is a standing committee report, it must be passed by the Parliament, it must be placed before the Parliament. We cannot say what the Parliament will do, but it must be laid before the Parliament. The bill must be laid and discussed before, debated before the Parliament. We have seen that bills are passed within an hour in the Parliament. Let it be debated, but let it not attain dust on the table of some officer in the ministry. So that another thing which should be done according to me. And the final thing is regarding financial autonomy. See, we can have everything on black and white paper here, but unless we have financial autonomy, nothing can be done. And one of the important provisions of the 125th Amendment Bill is financial autonomy, amendment of Article 280 of the Constitution. There again, I will request you to form a study group regarding financial autonomy, how much is being allocated, how much is being blocked, how much you are asking, how much is not given, the development projects. See, unless there are facts and figures, nothing can move. You have to give that this is what we wanted to do, this is the budget we propose, but this is the budget which has been approved, and this is the fund actually has come. So there must be a study group of maybe research students, research scholars, officers who will analyze these issues, who will analyze the financial autonomy part of it, and make an appropriate stand. Take an appropriate stand before the people, before the Parliament, before the Assembly. And our legislative bodies definitely will consider it and take appropriate decision on that matter. So this is what I think, that we will get autonomy, we have got autonomy, but somehow in procedure it has been, something is blocked. We have complete water, but this is blocked here. I can't drink it. So I have water, I have everything, but I can't drink it because it is blocked here. So just please open this and drink water. Unless you have opened this gap, wherever there is a bottleneck, the bottlenecks are by these roots which are being blocked. Please open this, fight it out, remove this bottleneck, and देखिए how we have autonomy found. Autonomy price to all पे पापा लगे. And according to me, with the spirit, Ajimok, so many wonderful work has been done by the Autonomous Council. So many new things are there. I have not seen in many parts of the country. One Dunia Banate is final part. Lovely. I can stay there for 2 days there only. With my family, I can listen to music, lie down, read books. So lovely. What Delhi जाने को ना पाए, नेचर ना पाए जाने को. Itu aru itu our social card पे. It's so pleasant. And we have lotus there floating like anything. मैंने अभी दिल्ली पर ऐसा lotus collect hundreds and thousands of lotus. I have taken so many pictures there. Such beautiful place. Definitely will flourish, and I find that all over the presence of the autonomous council there, all over the places. So they are really doing wonderful work, and with some more financial support, which more the laws which you are passing it, definitely I have no doubt that we will attain a further height in the constitutional setup. And if I am willing to answer one or two questions, provided the time is there.
So the rising controversy that we have here in Kyrgyzstan right now is on the controversy whether a reservation regime can come into this figure. Because as per Para 2, Para 1, there is no reservation provision for the election of Kyrgyzstan Autonomous Council. But there are different sections who have argued that the provision of 62 itself, because it is declared to be a tribal area as per Para 20 of the 62, and therefore the reservation regime is not necessary here. It is automatically transferred or to be reserved for the tribal people. But the second Administrative Reform Commission, which placed its report in 2009, clearly saying that anybody who attains the age of 25 years can contest in Kyrgyzstan elections. So, what is the real truth? Constitutionally, legally speaking, what is the real truth? Is the reservation regime possible under the 62, or is the provision of 62 entirely and automatically reserved for the tribal people? That part has to be very clear.
Tribal areas are there. Tribal areas meant to be governed under the council's down. And tribal areas where? Sorry. Where is the tribal area? The tribal area is where the tribal people are already dominating. So this is an arguable position. I don't want to take a stand because I have not analyzed it. But definitely we have reservations in the country for scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, etc. Why? Because perhaps it has been thought that in that particular community or tribe is not able to represent in the legislature, in the parliament, so we have reservations. So if all the tribal people are already sufficiently represented, or because without the vote of the tribal people you cannot get yourself elected, there will be people, tribal people, non-tribal people, but then if you are working for the tribal people, they will love you, they will elect you. But whether the tribal reservation regime as such can be there or not there, it's really a debatable issue. I'm sorry, I don't want to comment on that without analyzing this aspect of the matter, because this is a very important constitutional aspect. And I find that in the proposed bill, there is a provision for reservation is there. In 2019 reservation provision, the parliament has fought it. The government of India has fought it. There's reservation is possible. Let's do the reservation part of it. There is no doubt. The parliament is standing committee, which is of 31 members of the parliament. And I find that the select committees really work very hard from all parties, not from one political party. They represent the entire, all the different political parties. And then they come. They have not said it is not possible. So it is prima facie possible, but if it is law, it may definitely challenges are made here and there. But definitely I will look into it and I will come back to you with a more concrete opinion on the subject, whether it is possible or not, whether it is not possible. I don't want to comment on a lightly discussed research subject, which I have, reservation parties, I have not researched as such.
Sir, how powerful, how genuine or authentic is the recommendation of the Administrative Reform Commission?
That is, definitely that is a very issue. Why you refer to a committee? If you see from 1951, the first Amendment Act, it was referred to select committee of 40 members. Then the second, third, I am presently working on the constitutional amendments. Up to first 30 or 35, 30. There have been selective committees. For example, let me give you, we have the 9th schedule, in which the laws are made, then they are protected from being challenged on the ground of violation of fundamental rights. At one point of time, the bill introduced about 117 laws to be included in the 9th schedule. We say they cannot be challenged. The committee said, what is this? Many of them does not survive, many of them has not been challenged. You include only 40. Ultimately, Parliament passed only those 40 laws, which have to be included in the 9th schedule. So the committees are definitely, these are has a persuasive power. Ultimately, what the Parliament decides and debates, that is final. But definitely they look into the nitty-gritties, especially the standing committee has toured around the entire Northeast. It reflects the cross-section of the society, views of the cross-section of the society. They make recommendations. It will prevail on the members of the Parliament, and ultimately in a democracy it depends. You have to raise your voice sometimes. In the courts we don't raise your voice, but sometimes we have to raise our voice. I have said in one court at one point of time, normally I don't raise my voice in the courts. But what I found that once I was arguing in the court and other sides were very, very needy members and they were all raising their voices. I said, Lord, if I have to raise my voice, that will be an issue. Let me raise my voice. Let me. Sometimes you have to raise your voice.
Sir, I come from Tripura.
Yes.
I'm an advocate practicing in
Okay.
Tripura High Court. I have 3 questions to be clarified. I think in India we have only one constitution.
Yes.
And that is also the one 6th schedule we have.
6 schedule is part of the law.
Yes. But why it is different from state to state? Second, when we talk about Article 280, we knew the municipality budget and other thing. I think that falls.
Carbian Autonomous Council, Dr. Tuliram Ramhan, Honorable ENs, Dr. Jayanta Rongping, the architect of autonomy movement in Karbi Anglong, learned Advocate General Deposit Oikia, esteemed guests who are invited from various parts of Northeastern region in general and Assam in particular. Well, I have a humongous job, I have a Himalayan job. After such a sumptuous meal given by our Tuliram Ramham Dangoria, it will be Himalayan task for me to keep you awake. But nevertheless, I shall try my best to draw your certain attention. And as already been told by our learned Advocate General, he has flagged off certain very important issues for debate and discussion and deliberation. Well, my topic has already been talked about. It comprises 4 or 5 issues, my topic. First is about the 6th schedule of the Constitution, issues of amending power and autonomy, the accords which have been signed so far, and how these accords enhance autonomy in 6th schedule areas, particularly in Karbi Anglong. Well, with that perspective in mind, already the debate in Constituent Assembly has been talked about. I had studied a little bit about the debates in Constituent Assembly, and I see 3 schools of thought in the Constituent Assembly. One is what I would like to call anthropological debate. The second I would like to call assimilationist debate. And the third, which has been particularly accepted finally, was the middle part enunciated by Gopinath Bordoloi and Jawaharlal Nehru. What do I mean by anthropological approach? Well, there are certain groups of people, I have the main, areas of debate, who totally wanted isolation from the, other areas, and they wanted basically total autonomy, absolute autonomy. That is one school. I do not want to go into the debates. The assimilationists are already said by our Advocate General, Kulakar Soliha and Lumini Chaudhary and others talked about. They focus more about assimilation, saying that if we are having one India, especially after the advent of partition, why should we create another set of, sub-regional setup? And that was because I do not blame them, because they had, it's not that Rohini Chaudhary or Kulodhar Solia had disrespect, no. If you read the Constituent Assembly debates, they have tremendous respect for the tribals. But at that point of time, the Britishers had a very dubious plan. And that plan was, you must be knowing the Coupland plan. Regilan Coupland was the Oxford University professor who had a sinister design of creating a separate enclave and British protectorate, combining the tribal areas and other areas of Southeast Asia, particularly Myanmar, and create them, a protectorate state like Hong Kong. So that is why they were very much afraid of, in fact, Gopinath Bordoloi took this issue to Mahatma Gandhi. So many people were afraid that if we give this kind of autonomy, then a situation might come that it will lead to secessionism. This was the apprehension actually. So because finally, as has been said by, very nicely illustrated by my friend Devasit Hoikia, the views by Gopinath Bordoloi and views by Jawaharlal Nehru was accepted, and that's how 6th schedule was enacted. And now, when we talk about autonomy, let's not talk about only in the context of Karbi Anglong, because Karbi Anglong, as we discussed today, the autonomy issue cannot be seen in isolation. It has to be seen in overall perspective of India. Autonomy issue is going on about Jammu and Kashmir. Autonomy issue is also about Borderland areas and other areas also. Autonomy issues, dichotomy is coming up, and many people are demanding separate states. So what I would like to call the dichotomy of autonomy, there are two approaches. One is called the civic approach, the other is called the primordial approach. The civic approach speaks should the ethnic identity be the only way of organizing autonomy? How about economic underdevelopment? How about economic resource appropriation? How about the linguistic issues? Because in most of the other cases of India, it was the language which was the main factor for demanding autonomy, but later on, in 2003, economic development or underdevelopment became an important issue for the creation of separate state. And now, but I believe the issues of primordialism has become a very important way of organizing autonomy in Northeast India. But imagine we have 270 ethnic groups in Northeast India. I repeat, more than 270 ethnic groups, 185 languages. Imagine if all of them demand separate state or 6th schedule, or even say secessionism. In this region only, in Northeast India, we will have more than 190 nation states, which is not even there in the United Nations. So this is to the credit of the people of Northeast India that we learn, we know how to live with diversity, respecting each other. The contradictions are there. And here I would like to appreciate the Indian state to some extent by the fact that it has the enormous capacity to accommodate those demands. Otherwise, these issues have not been handled well by our neighboring countries. I'm adopting an international approach. Look at Sri Lanka, having a tough time, Bangladesh. Even issues like, our Myanmar, our neighboring countries having a tough time. So the point I'm trying to say is that Indian state has shown sufficient resilience in terms of accommodating our diverse interests. So we have the creation of separate states, number one. We have 244A of the Constitution. We have thirdly 6th schedule. And as has been said by my previous friend, we have also devised, conceptualized other forms of autonomy, like Development Council, which is extra-constitutional, autonomous councils, and satellite councils. These are some of the innovations. And these are examples of asymmetrical federalism. In fact, towards the end of my argument is that we are having asymmetrical federalism with 6th schedule, which is not there anywhere in the world. I mean, this is one of the best examples of asymmetrical federalism. Now, if we look at our state formation during 1955, there was demand for Kamatapur, there was demand for Purbanchal state. I do not want to go into the details. Then of course Nagas also demanded separate state. And then came the question of Assamese hegemony. Bhupinder Singh committee very nicely elaborated how the notion of Assamese chauvinism, which I do not mind mentioning the fact that yes, at some point of time, we had the so-called Zaita Himani, but the hegemony of Assamese chauvinism, the way we try to look at other tribes, created a sense of alienation. And Bhupinder Singh committee has very nicely elaborated that kind of allegations made by various tribes. And it is not only about alienation only, it is also about economic resource appropriation. Resource appropriation was also another factor which led to separate autonomous demand or separate state demand. Then again, but these demands were rejected by various committees. In 1966, another committee was appointed under chairmanship of H.B. Pataskar and other members were Shankar Prasad, G.S. Rao. But as all of us know, that this Pataskar committee recommendation, they basically rejected the formation of separate states by arguing the fact that these areas who are demanding separate states do not have geographical continuity or they do not have the ability to sustain on their own. So Pataskar committee also rejected those kind of separate demands. My argument is that the state formation in Northeast India is not due to various agitation. Yes, agitation played a very important role. But the most important role why separate states were created, I'm coming to autonomy after that, was because of the security concerns. For example, the formation of Nagaland, formation of Meghalaya, formation of Nagaland, Mizoram. Chinese factor played a very detrimental role in the formation of those states. Even state assembly was not consulted. So what I'm trying to say is that if we believe that it is only agitation that can lead to the state formation, may not be necessarily so in the context of Northeast India. Security concerns of the Indian state actually precipitated the Indian elites in determining the nation states or the formation of new states, even without consulting the Assam Assembly. But nevertheless, coming to 6th schedule, I believe this is one of the most innovative constitutional mechanism designed anywhere in the world. But there are many critics also. Many critics argue that the 6th schedule has in many cases failed in terms of fulfilling the demand of burgeoning demand of statehood. Many people demand more development. Many people demand more equitable development. Many people demand more inclusive development. So therefore, and in fact, there are issues of ethnic others. As my friend has said, we are extremely heterogeneous area, whether it is Bodoland, whether it is NCNs, whether it is Karbi Anglong, the issues of ethnic others, the dominant group and the non-dominant groups are there. How do we accommodate them? But I believe 6th schedule has really to a great extent accommodated the interest of the ethnic others, although there are certain issues which I believe will be subsequently accommodated by the accord which has been recently signed. Well, we have seen various violent or armed groups in Karbi Anglong areas, which was initially it was about the Autonomous State Demand Committee, which was launched by our friend Dr. Jayanta Rockby and his friends. But later on, the non-violent movement increasingly got articulated in the form of Karbi Longri and Karbi Hempek, which were basically articulated by various insurgent groups like Karbi National Volunteers, UPDS, KLNLF, KNPR, KNLF, ATF, so many organizations are there. An important thing is that in case of Northeast India, I would not hesitate to say that many of these insurgent groups, I am not saying their methods, but many of their demands were even supported by many civil society groups. And in fact, this is not my statement. This is said by one of the researchers, I quote, "It is even realized by many that this kind of radical sentiments are deepening during the movement for separate state, where different political elites or the political parties back the political militant movements in the district by all means they resisting one another," unquote. There is nothing wrong about it. Even Ulfa, when Ulfa in its heydays was supported by many regional political parties. In fact, at one point of time, who were not an alpha? That was the question. So the question that some militant groups were supported by some political parties is not a very big thing. Because in Northeast India, the issues are raised by both the non-violent political parties, non-violent civil society movement, as well as by insurgent groups. So they cannot be seen as a reactionary force. My argument is this, and in fact I have written also, that they cannot be seen as reactionary force, because when the non-violent demands are not met, only then the violent groups emerge and they become the potent force for addressing the issues of autonomy. Now coming to the issues of accords, which our inaugurator has talked about, the fact that in case of Karbi Anglong, it is not necessarily only about the issues of Karbis only. Initially, I'll argue that in our previous accords, we saw the coming together of various ethnic groups together. But later on, it became a question of competing ethno-nationalistic mobilization. For example, when Jayanta Rampi's brother, my brother near sitting by me, I'll talk about that. When they had signed the accord, 1995, they had various groups together. But later on it was found that state is what is state. State is about the mobilization of resources. State is about mobilization of authorities. So when we found that, we started our journey together, but later on, various groups, Dimasas or Cookies even developed their own agenda, as a result of which they got alienated from the broader Karbi identity area. So this is quite natural. This is what I would like to call ethno-nationalistic resources demand. This has happened with Ramas also. This has happened with the Missings also. For example, the Missings initially launched a movement called Nilashur movement. That you remember. The Nilashur movement was initially launched both by the Missings and the Ramas. But later on, the movement got separated. And there were separate assertions about their ethnic identity, and that's how political articulation got represented. Now I'm coming to the recent accords. This was just an illustrative analysis of the political developments that took place in Karbi Anglong. Now coming to accords, which is the one important part of my analysis. As I said, there are three important accords, if I may use the word. The first is Memorandum of Understanding 1995. The second is Tripartite Memorandum of Settlement in 2011 and 2012. It was detailed out. The Memorandum of Settlement, which was signed recently on September 4, 2021. Now, I find certain structural differences among these accords. The first signing of the accord in April 1st, 1995, as I say, it was a representation. It was led by ASDC, Karbi Students Association, and Civil Students Federation, Dimasa Students Union, and stalwarts like Bhairam Terang, Joan Jerompi were the part of the exercise. These were the groups, right? So we found a kind of first initial attempt made by the Autonomous Development Council and others, and substantial powers were granted by this accord. However, later on, this did not satisfy. And here again I take the help from our Jayanta Rampi when he said in the parliament that there are 7 or 6 factors which problems actually created as a result of operation of 6 civil in Karbi Anglong. He said, and I just would like to give your statement. Number one, he said that sixth schedule has failed in India since 1952 because there are certain inherent weakness. Number one, he said. Secondly, he said the funding from the government of India is to the state governments, where most of the state governments are burdened with overdraft problem. So funds do not reach to the district council. The third point, he said the issue of bureaucracy. Issue of bureaucracy is another issue that he has talked about. He said there should be separate cadre for tribal autonomous council. So these are some of the arguments, and he said many of these councils exist in Difu at the mercy of Dispur. Why? If there is a different kind of tribal, autonomous council in Difu, then the elites in Dispur do not favor them, isn't it? And that's how we see many of the councils were dissolved. So these are some of the problems which were highlighted by Jayanta Rompi during his term. Now, so therefore, although that accord was signed, but that accord failed rather to fulfill the burgeoning demand of the Karbi people. Then came the issue of UPDS. UPDS, when the accord was signed with the UPDS, and here the violent group only it was signed with UPDS, what I would like to call the armed group of UPDS. But here basically central government relied on the conflict fatigue of armed groups. I do not see very structural issues being raised in this accord, although there are some very good points which I will highlight. But nevertheless, central government basically relied on conflict fatigue of the insurgent group called UPDS, and they basically brought out certain important points nevertheless. So this accord created a politics what I would like to call package politics. Northeast is very famous for package politics. This package politics was started by Devegowda, and it is still going on even now. The latest accord has also given some package, and I believe that those packages will definitely be delivered in the days to come. But nevertheless, the most important point of that accord signed with UPDS, this important points were renaming of the council as Karbi Anglong Autonomous Territorial Council. The second was the increase of members to 50. Where 6 will be nominated by governor for more representation. However, proposed increase in seats from existing 26 to 44 elected seats would take place later on after 2016 and 17. And the present accord also is trying to fructify those suggestions which were made in that accord. Then I think another important suggestion by this accord was the establishment of village councils. I do not know the present operation of the village councils, but I believe those institutions are very much critical, because when we talk about autonomy, autonomy doesn't begin from Dispur, nor does it begin from Delhi, nor does it end in Dispur, nor does it end in Difu. The cascade of decentralization of power, starting from Delhi, starting from Guwahati, starting from Difu, also must go down, must percolate down to the grassroots level. So that is why I believe village councils or some form of autonomous councils, this is also there in our sixth schedule. Regional council concepts are also there. So we can be innovative. We can be innovative in terms of how to further create certain new institutions to further develop power. Then this accord also talked about the setting up of State Finance Commission, then strict adherence of financial management and proper audit of accounts. I think this is a very important contribution of this accord. But when I made a comparative analysis of all these accords, the most exhaustive, most beneficial accord I found is the recent one, which has been, signed by various insurgent outfits and also by Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council, where our Honorable Chief Minister, Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, and Government of India's various agencies were present there. I believe there are 7 or 8 important steps, characteristics of this accord, which we must discuss. The first, it says that it is the most comprehensive and final solution to the issue and problems of the Karbi people. So what I am trying to say is that it is really the most comprehensive, and I believe that these accords and the various provisions of this accord are implemented in its letter and spirit. And in the truest sense of the term, this is the most comprehensive accord. Secondly, the negotiations have led to the signing of memorandum of settlement, which will ensure greater devolution of autonomy to the Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. Already in the annexure, it has been given. So many subjects have been given to the district council. I believe once it is implemented, it will give a new color, new meaning to the functioning of autonomous council. In fact, I do not believe that any other sixth schedule would enjoy so much power as will be enjoyed by Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. The third point which it talks about is the protection of identity, language, culture of Karbi people. Nobody wants to get lost in the ambit of population dynamics. This democracy is about numbers. Whether we like it or dislike it, this democracy is about numbers. Everybody wants to protect their identity. I would like to draw your attention to the functioning of Sami Council. Those people who have visited the Scandinavian countries, I do not know how many of you have visited. We should see how Sami people, they are spread across Sweden, Russia and other Scandinavian countries, by Norway particularly. But where their customs, their identities are protected, nowhere they have been protected anywhere in the world. Therefore, I believe the protection of identity culture is a very, very critical factor in this accord. The fourth important factor is the rehabilitation of cadres of armed groups. I have seen Assam Accord. I have seen the Bodo Accord. But nowhere so much detailing was given in terms of rehabilitation of armed groups. Mostly they are left to the civil society to handle. That's how we had the menace called Sulfa. There was no proper package how to deal with the surrendered militant group called Ulfa. Ultimately, they were left to the civil society to handle, and that's how a sinister saga called secret killing has started. But this accord did not make this mistake, and I think the most comprehensive package is being given to the rehabilitation of the surrendered militants. And most important, this is all-inclusive. This accord is all-inclusive in the sense that all groups are there, KLNLF, PDCK, UPTLA, KPLT ceasefire, KPLTR, KPLTM. So all groups are there. That is why I believe that this will be a sustainable peace process. I do not believe in permanent peace. There is no such concept called permanent peace. Permanent peace is there when we go to the heaven. Ram Nam Satya Hai, Ram Nam Satya Hai. If we do not want Ram Nam Satya Hai, if we want to live in this world, I believe this accord will give you most sustainable way of crafting peace process. And আটাইতকৈ important কথা যিটো হ'ল যে this accord represents is the plurality of this region. কাৰণ আমি মন কৰিব লাগিব চাও যদিও এইটো কাৰ্বি ডমিনেণ্ট এখন society, কাৰ্বি সকলৰ ইতিহাস, their history, their culture is very much important. But we also must remember this is a plural society. All our regions of this state, we are essentially plural. অসমৰ গ্ৰুপ কিমান আছে? মটক মৰাণ আৰু লালুং চুতীয়া, মিচিং বৰাহী বড়ো কছাৰী ভুটীয়া, মেছৰাম সিংফু দফলা হাবুং আহোম কেওট কুচকৈ বট্ট বামুণ, ফাটিয়াল বনোৱাল আৰু দুৱনীয়া, কাৰ্বি মিচিমিফাই আৰু কৰঙীয়া, কলিতা কায়স্থৰ গোসাঁই মহন্ত, পহুৱা চমুৱা চাহ বৰুৱা অনন্ত, থলুৱা নেপালী আৰু পাহাৰীয়া ভাই, চৌষষ্ঠি জাতিৰে মিলনৰ ঠাই. So the point I am trying to say is that we also need to accommodate others. And this accord gives, I think, 10 offenses, isn't it, Julianji? 10 offenses for accommodation. So I believe this will give an open vista for accommodation of all people. And it has to happen through dialogue and negotiation. And last but not the least, I'll conclude here because we have so many speakers. I don't think so that at present separate state remains a relevant issue. At this juncture, I can argue, even in Bodoland, even in Karbi Anglong state demand is not the most relevant issue. কিয় মই অসমৰ প্ৰেক্ষাপটত কৈছো আজি অসমে যিটো পোৱা নাই এইটো কাৰ্বি আংলঙে পাইছে once you become state you cannot have this amount of reservation I am telling you আজি in Assam what is the most critical issue we cannot implement clause 6 of Assam Accord what is that constitutional legislative administrative protection of the Assamese people. Who are the Assamese people? Central government keeps asking this question. We have not been able to define it. We have till now we are fighting amongst ourselves who are the Assamese people. Imagine if Karbi Anglong tomorrow becomes a state. So this kind of representation, this kind of reservation will need redefinition, it will need reconceptualization, it will need restructuring. Adi he prekapatot koise the amount of power, the Borderland, the BTC only schedule in the plain areas they enjoy, the amount of this accord gives to Karbi Anglong, I believe, will slowly take away this separate state demand. It is up to you. I am not saying this is that,
Autonomous state. We need autonomous state.
Maybe I mean
Long-standing demand.
Okay.
This is most important.
That is not essential.
Because direction, because our Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council oldest 6 district in India. Largest 6 district in India.
Exactly.
51. Sikkim, even Tripura also.
Yeah.
We left geographical boundary 10,434 square kilometer.
So 244
We need autonomous state as per Constitution of India.
244A is the solution, but what I am saying is from the practical point of view. From practical point of view, Assam, we are still struggling to get clause 6. অসমে নাপায় কাহানো ৰিজাৰ্ভেশ্যন নাপায়
অসমত আমি বৰহম কৰিব বিচাৰিছো অসমত আমি বিভাজন নকৰি অসমত বৰহম কৰিব স্বায়ত্তশাসী ৰাজ্য মানে আমি অসমতে থাকিম
আমি সেই কথাটোৱে কৈছো কাৰ্বি অসমৰ মাজত সেইটো মই কোৱা নাই আই এম টকিং এবাউট দ্য কম্পেৰেটিভ পাৰ্সপেক্টিভ what Assam has got in Assam Karbi Anglong has got and most important that আজি সবে সকলোৱে একেলগে থাকিব লাগিব all of us must live together আটাইতকৈ ডাঙৰ কথা the present chief minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma মই ভাবো বৰ্তমান ভাৰতবৰ্ষৰ স্বাধীনতাৰ পাছত গোপীনাথ বৰদলৈৰ পাছত যদি অসমৰ গোষ্ঠী জনগোষ্ঠীৰ কাৰণে ইমান সেন্সিটিভলি ভবা যদি মানুহ এজন আছে সেইজন হৈছে ডক্টৰ হিমন্ত বিশ্ব শৰ্মা ইয়াত কোনো আপোনালোকে চিন্তাই নকৰিব যে আণ্ডাৰ ডক্টৰ হিমন্ত বিশ্ব শৰ্মা there will be injustice to the Karbi people and it is his initiative I have seen Tuliam Ranghanji and I have seen Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma the way he was working hard, they were toiling for signing this accord, it was unbelievable. There is a sensitivity to the Karbi people. তেখেতৰ আটাইতকৈ মন কৰক আজি অসমখনক কাৰ্বি আংলঙক দৃষ্টান্ত হিচাপে দিয়া হয় আজি অসমৰ অন্যান্য জেগাত আফটাৰ হোল্ডিং দ্য DC conference, after holding the SP conference, after holding the Assam cabinet here, মাননীয় অসমৰ মুখ্যমন্ত্ৰীয়ে কাৰ্বি আংলঙক গোটেই অসমৰ আদৰ্শ হিচাপে স্থাপন কৰে আৰু এইটো আপোনালোকৰ সাকসেছ এইটো আপোনালোকৰ সাকসেছ so what I'm trying to suggest is আপোনালোকে 244 these are constitutional demand these are constitutional demand I am not saying that you are not entitled to this is my private subjective opinion what I'm saying is that under the existing constitutional mechanism 6 singular power to basic. 6 singular power is basic in terms of your protecting your identity. If you want to আজি protecting identity to boru সকলে যেটো পাইছে অন্য নয়নো অন্তত তা you cannot take away the political reservation. Yes, political reservation to কোনো নিব নোৱাৰে আৰু সেই কাৰণে মই ভাবো কাৰ্বি আংলং অসমৰ সম্পদ আৰু আটাইতকৈ ডাঙৰ কথা let কাৰ্বি আংলং remain the idle point, reference point, the way Dr. Himanta Biswa Sharma says in nook and corner of the state. Our entire বিশ্বাস খালি ইয়াৰ লগে লগে let all other areas also develop and the human development index is also very critical, particularly the education at the grassroots level, particularly healthcare, which is coming up under the leadership of Tuliam Ranghangji. And with these words, I congratulate the Gambia Anglong Autonomous Council for having organized this. This is my personal opinion. I never want to say that 244 is not an option. It is an option. And in fact, Tuliam Ranghangji always assertive about 244A, and he will be. But at the same time, I urge all of you to go more spatial, more tempo spatially hoi. চাৰিওফালে আপোনালোকৰ বিকশিত হওক, তাই কামনাৰে ধন্যবাদ, নমস্কাৰ।
দিয়াৰ কাৰণে তেখেতে মানে আমাৰ বহুত স্পীচ দিছে আৰু তেখেতৰ কথা যিটো আমাৰ ট্ৰাইবেলৰ কথা বা কাৰ্বি আংলঙৰ কথা যিটো 6 শিডিউল বা অন্যষ্টেটৰ কথা তেখেতে আমাৰ ডক্টৰ জয়ন্ত ৰংপি ডাঙৰীয়া তেখেতে কৈছে, আমাৰ হিমন্ত বিশ্ব শৰ্মাৰ চিফ মিনিষ্টাৰ তেখেতে কৈছে যে ট্ৰাইবেল বিলাকৰ কাৰণে সেন্টিমেন্ট, ট্ৰাইবেল সেন্টিমেন্ট এই গোটেইখিনি গম পোৱাটো আপুনি গম পায়। গতিকে এই গোটেইখিনি প্ৰব্লেমছটো আমি ষ্টেপ বাই ষ্টেপ আমি সাকসেস কৰিব পাৰিম। আপোনালোকে সাপোৰ্ট লাগিব, উই নিড ইউৰ সাপোৰ্ট, উই নিড ইউৰ কোঅপাৰেশ্যন। আপোনালোকে সদায় সাপোৰ্ট দিলে সেইটো আমি কৰিব পাৰিম। থেংক ইউ সো মাচ। নেক্সট মেইন এজেন্ডা স্পিকাৰ মিস্টার নবীন তেরণ।
I will say today, rather than a speaker, I'm a person who is an observer. I'm an observer who will take many votes from here to say to my this part of the state as well as to this part of the country. I stay in Delhi and I'm really impressed by the enthusiasm shown by the Karbi Anglong people about protecting their rights. I am highly impressed by their conduct today in the seminar, the way the questions were put. It shows the progress which I have seen. The moment I entered into the Karbi Anglong district, it shows that the lawmaker, the constitutional maker, who has dreamt about bringing proper protection to this council has been achieved. The dream of the constitutional maker has been brought to the reality by the executive members of this council, and I am really thankful that the law has been protected properly in this particular district. I'll not say much on the legality of the subject. I'll just say that when the constitutional maker gave a special recognition to the council under the 6th schedule, it was a milestone for Karbi Anglong. The intent of the lawmaker was to protect the cultural heritage, its faith, belief, and of the indigenous people. The intent was also to preserve the natural resources and the beauty of the district, development and the progress of the district. And I must say that the council has done a commendable job in performing the responsibilities assigned to them by the lawmakers with utmost integrity and sincerity. And that can, as I have already said, that can be very well seen the moment you enter into the district. It's purely consisting of the natural beauty. It is clean and the progress has been shown. By looking at this auditorium also, it can be said that this is a world-class auditorium made by the council and a commendable job has been done. I'll also say, I'll not say much on the record because many things have been discussed, but I'll say that it was itself a milestone when in 1952, the 6th schedule was, in the 6th schedule, Karbi Anglong was given a special status. But history was rewritten not even once, it was rewritten twice, in 1995 as well as in now in 2021. In 1995, the Karbi Anglong district got the additional powers to legislate law. And today, when we see in 2021, I'll say it is given a higher political protection by giving a reservation, which was not there. And also the seats of the council has been increased. The number of the constituencies has been increased, which will protect the rights of the people. The democracy is to go to the nook and corner of the society, and this will give higher responsibility to the council. I'll also say that giving 2 reservations to 2 women candidates is also a very tremendous job done by the government, because women empowerment is a subject which should not be left behind. The women should have a proper representation in the assembly. And I'll not take much from here because already we are too late and because of the paucity of time. And I'll thankful to Ms. Sri Tuliram Rangang again, Honorable CM, for giving me this opportunity to be part of you all. Thank you.